right, welcome to Table Tennis Philosophy. We're going to answer the question today, is table tennis defense dead? The answer, no, not completely, but it's been dying a slow death for quite a while, and I'm going to tell you some of the reasons. Even though it's really, really hard to play defense these days, it doesn't keep it from being a lot of fun. In fact, I've still got a defensive blade that I went ahead and purchased some defensive rubber for. It's probably not what I would use in matches, but defense remains a fun way to play, even if it's hard to be real successful with it. And part of it being it slows the game down a little bit, makes the points last a little longer, and that's usually a good thing. That's really a good thing for your enjoyment of table tennis. It's not all serve attack all the time. But there's some things that have evolved in table tennis, and we're still feeling the effects of them. And I think it really started with the 38 millimeter ball. Okay, we were using the 38 millimeter ball for most of my life until we came up with a 40 millimeter ball. I don't know if you can tell too much difference there, but there is a difference. And you wouldn't think it would mean much, but it turns out that it does. Not only is the 38 smaller, it also is made of a different material. It's celluloid, I believe, and this is a plastic polyball, which is what we've been playing with for a few years now. And once the ball got bigger, and once the ball was changed to plastic, the amount of spin that you could get on a ball was reduced, and that affected all spin-oriented games. And also, when I'm talking about defense, I'm talking about mostly chopping, but also blocking, fishing. That's playing. That's the best way to describe that. Top spin defense shots back from the table. So anything that involves adding more spin and not necessarily more speed, that would probably be considered defense. I would include blocking in that, and I've made some videos saying how blocking still needs to be a big part of your game, or at least part of your game occasionally, and I would go with chopping for that as well. You don't want to throw it out completely just because it's hard to make a game out of purely chopping. But the game has gotten faster, and once they took away a little bit of spin, speed became a bigger deal. So players are staying closer to the table. Players have to be more athletic, have to make stronger shots. Make no mistake, spin is still a huge part of the game, probably the biggest part of the game, but the game has slowly gotten to the point where hitting with power, hitting with speed, making attacks close to the table is the way that most players are playing. It's like a lot of sports have evolved to where everything is just faster. The technology of the equipment has made things faster. In table tennis, the change of the ball has made things faster. So it started, like I said, when we went to the 40 millimeter ball. And once that happened, players had to figure out, can they play the same style they always had, or do they need to do something different? Do they need to change? And I think my game has changed a bit, and probably a lot of people's have. The problem with chopping right now and playing defense, or any kind of anything where you're going to really play back far from the table, it's not learning how to chop. That does take something. I've had coaches say that it took a couple years longer to develop a chopper as opposed to an offensive player, and that was back when it was a 38 millimeter ball. So it was always difficult to learn to be a really good, successful chopper, but at least once you did it, then you could be competitive with any player. There were choppers in the top levels and good choppers in clubs, and it was a legitimate way to play. The problem now is not learning how to chop. There's still equipment that's made for chopping, good equipment, slow rackets, made for defense, long pips, and paddles that are made specifically for defense. The problem is not making the shots and not having the equipment to do it. The problem is getting into position to do it, and that probably has always been what's kept defensive players to be more successful and kept more people from going into a chopping game exclusively. The problem is when other players are playing very close to the table, making really, really strong shots, that means when you back up, you're going to have to cover more area. It's tough to handle those shots, except with perhaps a quick block might work. But if you're really chopping and the ball's coming at you with a really strong looping shot, unless you're a really, really good chopper, it's hard to play that close to the table. Now, if you back off the table, then at that point, you're having to cover more area. The further you back off from the table, the more you've got to cover left, right, as well as back from the table and towards the table. Now, there are some good choppers in the world. I would say most of the ones that are good choppers in the men's ranks are doing what's been described as modern defense, which means they don't try to chop everything. In fact, they probably loop nearly as much as they chop. So that is kind of a compromise on what you could do with a defensive game, and that would work. Women have been successful chopping still to this day, and it's not that it's not difficult, but if they are playing other women and the ball is not coming quite as fast as it would with playing the top men, then chopping can still work to some extent. But like I said, chopping's not dead. It's not getting any stronger. I've not seen anything that makes it look like chopping is going to make a big comeback, or defense in general is going to make a big comeback. I think at best you can mix it into your game, which is really important no matter where you fall as far as being a beginner or top player or anywhere in between. You need some defense, but if you're a purely defensive player, it makes it really, really tough. You can advance through them, if you're good at it, you can certainly get through the intermediate level, but after that, you really better be extremely, extremely good at defense. There may be some good defensive players out there that disagree with me, but that's the point, is it's really tough to play top-level defense in table tennis, and I think it's only going to get harder. But it doesn't keep me from giving it a shot. Like I said, I'm having some fun with it when I can, but if I really want to develop my game, I probably need to concentrate a little bit more on the offensive side. All right, hope you enjoyed this. I appreciate your comments. We'll see you next time.